Hello, I'm Jason White, and this is Jason's Weird Reads, and today I'm going to be doing a reading vlog for the week of Weird. And first book I finished for this actually was House of Bone and Rain by Gabino Iglesias. I stormed through this book really quickly, and the reason for that it was really good. Excuse me. And I also had the time. But I listened to the audiobook, and it was a brutal, fascinating read. I really enjoyed it. Although I don't think it really fit the cosmic horror elements, so my suspicions on that were correct. But it is definitely Lovecraftian. I'm going to leave it at that, because nobody's really talked about what's going on in this novel yet, but I will tell you the basic plot is that there's a group of 4 friends, and I forget where it is they live, somewhere in the Caribbean, Puerto Rico. Anyways, this group of 4 friends who they live on the streets of this town, and they because they live on the streets, they see some pretty nasty things. And one day, one of their mothers is shot dead on the street, 2 bullets to the face. And so they don't know who did it, but they decide to go and find out who did it and get revenge. And that's the basic plot for the whole story. And it's, as I said, it's very brutal, and some parts are really hard to read because some of the revenge implementations just kind of drag on. I gave this 5 stars. I think it's weak 5 stars. If I was to chop it up a bit more, I would give it maybe 4.5 to 4.75 stars out of 5. It's really good though, and like I said, there is a strong Lovecraftian element in House of Bone and Rain that it was really interesting how Gabino Iglesias wove those Lovecraftian elements into the plot itself, and it all works out very well. And it's kind of creepy in a way, although it never really gets too scary in that. It's more fascinating as to what's going on in regards to the Lovecraftian elements. And I've also made a lot of headway into Uzumaki. Uzumaki is that, here, let me show you. Uzumaki is the Junji Ito collection of the weird spiral mangas that I guess he wrote. And when I go into reading mangas, it's always a bit of a chore to remember that I have to read backwards. But this is a really, really cool and really weird and quite gory at points and disturbing. But it's not all in color, just some of the pages are in color. See, it goes into the black and white. And Kiri here, she is our main character throughout all the stories. She has a boyfriend who gets quite disturbed by these spirals in the sky pretty early on in the story. People become obsessed with the spirals, and there's one story in here that really it was really fucked up. Well, all the stories, it's fair to say, are really fucked up, but this guy here, he's like head over heels for Kiri, and he loves to jump out at her and say boo and scare her, and he has this serious crush on her. And it goes to some pretty dark places. He's doing it again there. Goes to some pretty dark places. He says he tries to give her a gift, and then she's telling him that she's not interested in him, and so he runs out in front of a car. And as you can see here, what does he say there? Yeah, he thinks it's like a joke. He says that his love for her will stop this car, but of course it doesn't. And he gets mangled up in the car. That's pretty gruesome right there. I don't think it's possible to be caught up in the wheel well like that. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's pretty gruesome anyway. And the weird thing about this is later on in the story, which it's not too long, but he comes back to life. And let me see if I can find that here. And he's like all stitched together from being torn apart, and he's like this awful looking monster now that's like chasing her and her her boyfriend through the graveyard. It's horrifying, and it's also fucking great. I love this little collection. It's so far it's been kind of a highlight of my year, my reading year. So this is only Monday, and I've made quite the dent into my week of weird reading, and I'm quite happy with that. About ready to get ready for work, eat my breakfast, and then go into work, where I'm planning on reading more of this. And I'm going to be listening to Hawk Mountain, which I should be able to finish quite quickly too. I'm surprised at how much I'm burning through all this. All I really have to do now is finish Hawk Mountain. Well, finish this, read the rest of Hawk Mountain. I started that. I started that one a little bit early. I was listening to it on Saturday. I just wanted to see if I would like it, and I think I will like it. I still don't know if it's going to go into the weird fiction realm, but it's still pretty interesting. It's about a teacher who's remembering his awful childhood, basically, while at the same time he's meeting or he's talking with somebody who he has a crush on. And he and his kid, he's a single father, and I'm just going to leave it at that because I don't really know what's going on exactly. But that's it for now, for this vlog. I'll report in maybe later tonight or tomorrow or later in the week. It's now Wednesday, September the 18th, and I've made it to page 458 of the Uzumaki manga, and that's a little bit more than 3/4. I'm really storming through this, and I'm enjoying it a lot. So, I mean, the art is just incredible, right? I'm gonna have to check out more Junji Ito for sure in the future. I'm also storming through Hawk Mountain. I didn't read it quite as fast as I did House of Bone and Rain by Gabino Iglesias, but this one I'm really enjoying as well. It's really dark and twisted, and although my assumption of what the story was about is correct, I don't know if it really actually falls into weird fiction. It might be weird fiction light. It sort of has like I want to say a Shirley Jackson sort of creeping edge to it in the background, but really it reminds me more of I was thinking about this morning and now it escapes me, but it reminds me of something that actually doesn't really look like it on the surface. It's it's a Jim Thompson story, The Killer Inside Me by Jim Thompson. It kind of reminds me of that, and I don't really want to spoil the book in case you haven't read it. I went into this pretty well blind, and I say this a lot, but it's true. I think it's good to go into it blind. My biggest thing about it, though, is that if you do decide to read Hawk Mountain, that the beginning of it is a little bit confusing. I was confused as to what was going on and who was who, but you catch on fairly early that the story is about Todd, who's a teacher, and he comes from a past of extreme bullying by a guy named Jack. And it bounces back and forth in the beginning between timelines. So you get Todd when he was in high school, And then you get Todd as an adult when Jack suddenly reappears in his life and pretty much tries to butt himself right into his life. It's kind of a strange juxtaposition there, where in high school Jack really hated Todd and bullied him mercilessly, and he even like beat him up a couple of times. And then suddenly Todd is like, it's like 15 years later, Todd is going through a divorce and he's a single parent, and he just moves into a new town and is at the beach with his kid when Jack shows up suddenly and asks if he can spend the night. And then he doesn't want to leave, and there's some interesting things going on sexually in concerns of homosexuality. Todd is, you could say, a closet homosexual, and it's interesting how he doesn't want to admit it to himself or anyone else. It's interesting because I guess society could very well be the dictator as to why he doesn't want this. But his parents, like when you go back into his past, his parents weren't really against it or anything. They didn't hammer home Jesus or anything like that to him. So it's interesting also that Jack is apparently gay. Okay, I'm getting too much into spoilers here, but it's a fascinating story, regardless. And like I said, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Killer Inside Me by Jim Thompson. On the surface, not really. It's more about the character and what they go through when shit starts to get real. And shit does start to get real. There's a lot of tension in what I was just describing, and then it gets pretty nasty. This book is kind of hard to read at points, but that's horror for you. I just wanted to show you guys this from the Uzumaki manga. This is they're trying to escape these storms that keep hitting, and reality is so thin that if you talk too loud or if you blow air out your cheeks, you'll cause like a whirlwind or a tornado. And so these people have all collected themselves into a row house to hide from it, and it's so full that their limbs are all twisted and bent into each other, and it's just horrifying. Today is September the 19th, and it is my birthday. And we're not celebrating my birthday until Saturday because everyone's working and whatnot, but I did get one present today because my wife, she got it for me and she couldn't wait to give it to me, and it's one of the coolest shirts I've ever had. So here it is. It's The Thing. I mean, how cool is that? The Thing. And if you watch the movie, you know what that reference is. If you know, you know. So last night, I finished Hawk Mountain, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars. It was one of the most intense books I've read this year. I don't know how else to say it, but it never really went to the weird, in my opinion. I guess you could read it. It's very literary type fiction, and I say literary loosely. It's by literary, of course, I mean it's a character study, and it's written with really good prose, but it's never purple. So it's very much a character study, and there is a plot in there too, but don't expect any resolutions or anything. It's quite brutal. It's more about the characters and maybe what they learn about themselves, if they learn anything about themselves. It's a very dark read, and I don't think there's any comedy. Maybe there is. There might be a joke here and there to sort of break the tension up a little bit, but I'm glad I read it, and so thanks to the person who recommended it. It's a fantastic book. Of course, I read this for a week of weird. That's why I'm saying I don't know if it was exactly weird fiction. I think maybe some people might think it's weird fiction because of the literary feel it has is very strong literary. And honestly, to get on that, I don't know why people are so offended by the word literary. It's just a style of writing. That's it. Literary is basically, if you're unaware of what literary is or what people consider to be literary, it's usually character studies, more character, less plot, and usually there's flowery or very fancy writing that goes involved, or that's involved with it. So this definitely fits that. It doesn't necessarily have the purple prose, but the prose itself is very well done. So that's my last catch up. I'm almost done with Uzumaki here, and I only have about 3 stories left, maybe 4, and so I should be done by Saturday. And that short story that we're all reading for the group read, I still got to jump on that, and then I will have completed the week of Weird, and I can't wait. Alright, so we reached the end of the week of Weird. It's Saturday, September 21st, and it was quite the week. I've read 3 books for it, and that short story. And I enjoyed every single thing I read for the week of Weird. This was the most I've read for the week of Weird, which is pretty awesome. So I was more than happy to co-host, and I want to thank Crystal from Fiber RC for asking me to co-host this awesome and fun event. And I want to thank everyone who came along to read some weird books with us. And to recap what I read House of Bone and Rain by Gabino Iglesias. That was a lot of fun. It was very violent. Sometimes it was a little difficult to read because of the violence, but it was still a lot of fun. And then I read Hawk Mountain. The author's name is escaping me. It's Connor Habib. That book wasn't fun at all, but I really enjoyed it still. It was another difficult read. If you've read Hawk Mountain, then you know why it's hard to read. It's one of those books. Very literary though, and makes you think. I also read Uzumaki by Junji Ito. This book, it's a manga, a collection of mangas. I think there's 9 or 10 mangas in there, and it's about spirals and this little Japanese town that becomes obsessed with spirals. And man, that story goes some weird places. And honestly, I could have put that in the cosmic horror section, because it's very cosmic horror. I mean, it's extremely cosmic horror, and I absolutely adore it. I think, honestly, out of all the books I've read, that was my favorite. And the short story that we read, which I am completely gapping the name of, but that was kind of forgetting what it was too, honestly. But that was a lot of fun. It was a very old story. You could tell it had like an old style to it. Alright, so that is my little wrap up. Thank you for joining me on this vlog, if that's what you could call it. And keep being safe, keep being weird, and keep being creative. And I'll catch you guys in the next bookish video.